I'd like to call the village board meeting to order. Roll call.
President Vernon,
Here.
trustees Cook,
Here?
Forster,
Here.
Schultz,
Here.
Markford,
Here.
Oppenheim, Takaoka.
Here.
Okay. All right, we have a quorum. Would everybody please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are there any citizens that wish to address the board tonight? Okay, none.
At this juncture, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to allow for the attendance of trustee Craig Takaoka via electronic means at this meeting per our ordinance that requires an affirmative vote from the board to allow that.
Okay, it's a motion, and do we have a
Second.
second? Motion is second. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Cook,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Markford,
Aye.
Oppenheim, Takaoka.
I was thinking.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Doing that.
Okay. All right, village manager declaration 21-05.
Again, this is just a reminder that the village president will be signing Declaration 21-05, which continues the state of emergency in Vernon Hills in parallel with the state of emergency that was declared by the governor last March. This will remain in effect till the next board meeting and the next declaration is signed and approved.
Okay. All right, well, next item is the omnibus vote agenda. Is there a motion to approve items A through H?
So made.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Schultz,
Aye.
Oppenheim, Takaoka,
Aye. Aye.
Markford,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Is there any new business, unfinished business, anything that anybody wants to bring up?
I've just got one item. As I think everyone's fully aware, I've been kind of leading a somewhat futile charge to convince our good governor to end the maintenance of all public flags. And supposedly it should be all flags, but in most cases it's just the public flags that are being flown at half-staff. I was able to, I've received a communication this last week from Representative Dittich, who introduced House Bill 3372, which mandates that the flag can be held at half-staff for no longer than the maximum allowed by federal code. And currently, the maximum for federal code is 30 days, which is the only is allowed for presidents or former presidents upon their death. So with that being said, there is some movement on this issue. If anyone feels like I do that we've kept our flags at half-staff for almost a year now, and it's kind of lost any emphasis that if they would like to contact their state rep, so we get it through the House, and if that does occur, then to the Senate. And of course, the governor still has to sign it, so we'll see what happens if it gets that far. But anyway, House Bill 3372 is what I'm talking about, and I would like to see it move forward. So that's my only new business / communication that I have, sir.
Okay.
Would you like us to send
I
a
would love
resolution to that? I mean,
resolution by this board supporting that. if that
Oh, yeah,
can
we
be
already
done.
sent the
Yeah,
letter.
yeah, and I mean, now that there's an actual bill that we can support,
Sure, we can, we've authored the letter, we can modify it to be in resolution form and bring it before the board for the next meeting or
Sure.
for approval?
That
Yeah.
would be fine by
Yeah.
me.
Okay, perfect.
that'd be good.
Okay. Any other new business or communication? If not, is there a motion to adjourn the village board meeting to go into committee of the whole?
So made.
Motion is second, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustee Schultz,
Aye.
Oppenheim. Takaoka,
Aye.
Markwart,
Aye.
Forster, Cook.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. I'd like to call the committee of the whole meeting to order. First item is approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes of February 16th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Motion is second. Comments, questions, corrections, deletions? If not, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim. Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster, Markwart.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, budget presentation and discussion. So who's kicking this one off?
That will be me.
Okay,
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the presentation of the proposed fiscal year 21-22 village budget. To make things a little easier this year, staff has purposely kept the agenda for this evening's committee of the whole clear of all other business so that the proposed budget could be presented tonight in its entirety, as opposed to spreading it out over 2 board meetings as we've done in the past. Hopefully this makes it a little easier to get a better financial picture of the village. Now, the board members received their budget binders roughly a week ago, and the entire budget has been posted on the village's website at roughly the same time. And then just as a reminder for anyone who may be viewing this later, the capital improvement budget was previously presented, discussed, and approved at the January 5th, 2021 village board meeting. Tonight, staff will be presenting the board with a financial overview of the village, including where we ended our last fiscal year, ending in April of 2020, how we anticipate ending our current fiscal year, which ends next month, and where we see the village 13 months from now at the conclusion of this next fiscal year. Following the financial discussion, staff will present each of their proposed operating budgets for the next fiscal year, with the exception of the golf course budget. They had a prior commitment this evening and are scheduled to appear before the board at the March 16th Committee of the Whole to present their budget in its entirety. The village will hold a public hearing on April 20th, immediately prior to the beginning of the regularly scheduled village board meeting, to allow public comment on the proposed budget, as we've done in the past. And if all goes well, formal approval of the fiscal year 21-22 village budget will be at that meeting. This year has been a year like no other than I can remember. We've weathered recessions, depressions, bank crashes, housing market stagnations, and significant drops in our revenue, but never before have any of us experienced so many of these factors, yet in the midst of a total pandemic and all the issues associated with it. I would sincerely like to thank every member of our team for the way in which they tackled these challenges, engaged the business community and our seniors and residents of the community, and continued to provide uninterrupted services to our residents. The budget we present to you tonight was the most collaborative budget process that I have ever been involved in. And I'd like to thank all those who helped develop the budget and are about to present it. I would also like to give special thanks to Ann and Kyle from Lauterbach and Amen. Their experience and insight into the financial trends has been invaluable in formulating this budget, as you can imagine, as the financial trends have waxed and waned over the past couple of years, or the past 12 months, and has been almost impossible for anyone to predict. And I would also like to thank every department head for their hard efforts in keeping the budget costs down this year. Generally, it's at this point that I would turn over the presentation to Kyle, our CFO, but this morning he had a family medical emergency that required him to transport one of his members to the hospital this afternoon. He is planning on attending this evening, and actually he called about 20 minutes ago and said he's on his way, but may not get here till about 8 o'clock. In the meantime, as opposed to doing like a comedy routine or a soft dance, I'm going to try and do my best to work through his PowerPoint presentation to provide a brief financial overview. I'm only going to try and cover the first maybe 6 or so slides, which kind of sets the tempo for where we're going this year. The department heads will then provide their budget proposals, and when Kyle arrives, he can go back and fill in the financial details and answer any questions that you may have. The first slide that he has here just basically is an organization of how your budget binders are put together, and I think everyone is familiar with that now. The next slide here is key takeaways from this past fiscal year. The village weathered the COVID-19 pandemic in all of its forms. Sales taxes were down close to 20%. Food and beverage taxes were down about 25%. The good news at the same time is we also endured the perfect storm of what I call one-time revenues. With the TIF transfer from eligible expenses from the Melody Farms TIF, CARES Act funding, and developer fees of over $1 million of unanticipated permit fees, we ended up pretty well this year. Staff kept costs significantly below budget. If you recall, between the time we presented the first half of our budget last year and when the second half was presented was when the governor declared the state of emergency and everyone went into lockdown. And there was a lot of discussion about how we were going to handle the budget. Should we amend the budget? And we asked the board's indulgence and said that, staff would do their best to try to hold down costs. We identified about $2.2 million in cuts that could possibly be eliminated if the situation warranted it. And we also gave our promise to the board that we would not spend that money unless absolutely necessary. With that in mind, we only spent $100,000 of that money, and we kept it eliminating $2.1 million of expenses from the budget while still having the capital improvement budget in place. And we are expected to end the year this year about $2.1 million below expenditure. Our expenditures are expected to end the year $2.1 million below what was approved in last year's operating budget. And obviously that doesn't take into account the capital transfer budget. The general fund balance declined by about $588,000 this year, but $1.5 million less than expected. And I guess the easy way is to explain this is through all this, we anticipated a $2.1 million transfer to the general fund from the capital improvement fund to fund capital improvements. And over half of that was the road rehabilitation project. Of that, we only needed $588,000. So there was $1.5 million less that was transferred out to meet those needs. But again, we anticipated and budgeted for $2.1 million, only having to transfer out $588,000. I say only. This year, in the proposal, again, we're going to ask for the proposed budget includes a $2.97 million transfer to the general fund, and that's to fund the $2.97 million capital improvement budget that was approved earlier this year.
Just a question for you, back on page 1, those one-time expenses last year when we were caught up on changing the accounting principles, that summer sale and the golf course were there, we're now caught up and everything's...
We're now caught up on everything. Let's see. My backup.
So we did catch up on transferring to summer cell golf, and capital projects. However, we are also going to be budgeting in FY22 another transfer to the capital projects sub-fund because of projects that need to be done. So we are done with golf in Somerset because of the lack of expenditures that happened last year, but we want to do this on an annual basis to make sure they stay in the black instead of having multiple years to, kind of catch up with. So, does that help with that question?
Yes, thank you.
Does everyone remember how we got to that point? Okay, I don't need to go into that. Okay, in terms of this year's proposed budget, the operating budget is about $1.92 million, it's $1.92 million below what our anticipated revenues are. And the easiest way to explain this is if you look at the column on the right-hand side of the PowerPoint presentation, revenues are anticipated to be $25.56 million. Without the capital without the capital budget transfer, our expenditures are anticipated to be $23.64 million. So essentially, the operating budget is $1.92 million in the black. Now, if we're funding the capital improvement budget at $2.97 million, that leaves just a little over $1 million transfer from the reserves into the capital, or into the general operating budget to fund capital improvements. Pardon me?
It's not a transfer, actually, it's a reduction of the general fund, pretty much fund balance. So, but because of the almost $3 million transfer to capital projects.
Do we have two mics? So she
I was
can
going to
have.
say, this is what happens when you have a non-financial person delivering financial news,
No.
which is why I'm only trying to cover the highlights,
This
and I'll
way she
let
can
Kyle
sit
cover
in a
the
better
specifics.
spot, too.
Yeah, that's probably better.
And maybe hold the mic a little closer, because that works, too.
So the next slide that we want to look at is the major general fund revenues. So as you can see from this slide, we have the actual FY20 revenues. We have our budgeted revenues for current year with a year-end estimate. And then our FY22 budget with some calculations of percent changes and dollar changes. As you look at this, you can see that our FY21 budget for revenues was $25.2 million. We estimated we will come in at 25.6, which is phenomenal for the last year that we had.
But that's due to all other.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're showing, roughly a 5% decrease still in sales tax, food and beverage tax, but the biggest anticipated amount of revenue is from the building permit fees associated with the Hawthorne redevelopment project, the South Lake Industrial Complex, and the Inverleigh Senior Living Facility. Those are projected to generate over $1 million in additional revenue, which is about double what we anticipated last year, and that's more than making up the shortfall. Not by a lot, but we're anticipating like 1.5%.
The most troubling number on this page, though, is the difference between the budget and what you're looking at as the estimate for closing this year with regard to sales tax. Now, is that budget number, is that the revised budget number after we took into account COVID? Or is that the budget number that we approved a year ago, the 11.9? It's the,
We did not change any of the budget figures for COVID.
okay.
We
So
came up
even-
with a plan to,
Right.
present where we thought it
Okay,
would be.
well, we did create that where we reduced our expectations of
Yes.
revenue. But the number that you're showing here is the number that was approved last April going into May.
Correct.
Okay, so that's a big drop off, and I can accept that. I was looking at this thinking that we had a worse than expected fourth quarter of fiscal year, and this is balanced out over all 4 quarters.
Correct. It actually, again, it's, you read the same IML article that I did, and everyone says, you know, we're sorry, we got it wrong. The revenues were significantly higher than were originally projected.
Right.
Most were projecting a 30 to 35% decrease. We ended up with about 15 to 20%, depending on which category it was.
Would, as long as we've got her own mic, is she willing to take a crack at, it was page 3, sales taxes, and again, talking sales taxes, is down 20%. Are we expecting to see that 20%, and that's represented here also, but how much of that will we recover from, okay, let me start over here. We're seeing a trend towards more internet sales, just generally speaking, and COVID exacerbated that. And as we move forward, we saw this 20% loss, but is that 20% loss strictly COVID, or is part of that going to be sustained as part of the changing dynamic of internet sales? Have we looked at that in depth as we went forward to create the budget here of 11.3?
If I could ask a favor, Kyle will be here soon, and
Not
I
a
know
problem.
he has
Understood.
done a lot more.
Understood.
Okay,
We'll put that on the,
thank you.
Just a quick
that
answer to your question is, because Kyle and I have had this discussion about how internet sales is going to affect it.
Right.
And he said that obviously they anticipate regular sales tax revenue to increase over what it is. This is pandemic related.
Right.
And he said actually the IML is forecasting not significant, but quite a bit higher in sales tax revenue because of the internet, the Marketplace Fairness Act and the internet sharing,
okay,
where the state is showing an increase due to us.
okay.
So, but I'll let him address that in more detail.
Drill down on it.
But that was a question that we've discussed many times.
Good, thank you.
Do we, as far as the state, what kind of revenue has the internet sales, you know, actually generated?
I'm sorry, that's a Kyle question.
Okay.
I'm more
From that
worried about how
article,
things
I thought
affect
it was-
us.
I mean, one would have hoped we would have gotten, we'll say just as a raw number, $1 million. I think the state has only collected like $500,000, you know, for us. So I don't think, it would be a whole lot nicer if people were in the store shopping as opposed to us depending upon getting some of the internet
Right.
revenue
You know,
returned.
one thing I found amazing today, Target, I don't know if anybody heard this, $15 billion they made in profit this year.
Yeah,
But they,
stock, oh, sales,
yeah, 15 billion.
yeah.
And again, Kyle can address this more, but we saw this early on when the pandemic first hit and many of the retailers were shut down. The big box stores, the Menards, the Sam's
Yeah,
Club,
yeah.
the Costco's, the Targets, Walmarts, all those places had significant, some were up 300% at one point in sales.
Yeah, well, there was a supreme short, I digress here, but there was a supreme shortage of pressure-treated lumber this year, and it was twofold. One, everybody was redoing projects
Yeah.
around their home. Two, there were some factory issues too, but, you know, again, a big piece was people were nest building because they were stuck in their
Nothing else
nests.
to do. You couldn't go
Yeah.
on vacation. Even if you had the money to go on vacation, you couldn't go anywhere. And so many people, that personally, I know, reinvested in home improvement projects or bought new cars or bought things for around the house, et
Yep.
cetera.
Okay,
This chart here just shows our sales tax, the 1% of the home rule sales tax, and how it's trended over the years. And then it shows where we're anticipating it to be next year. This chart here is very interesting. This is a comparison between the current year's budget and next year's budget. And the interesting thing to note is the second to last column, the percent of change. You look at the number at the very bottom, and we are proposing an operating budget that's 6.2% below what we asked for last year. So that's with all things taken into consideration and, cutting things where we could and we knew we were going to cut. This budget here represents a 6.2% decrease over what we requested last year. And then this is everyone's favorite, the pie chart. It shows where our percentage of expenditures go. Again, it's like around 70% are salaries and benefits, between 60 and 70%. The rest are things that we have control over, but not really. Maintenance, replacement issues, things like that. And then the last one I'm going to touch, these are the ones he didn't want me to. This is it. The last one here is the fund balance. This is the one that we all key on, is where's the village fund balance going? We are projecting at the end of this year, we will have $28.9 million in reserves. We will be 99% funded. And the only way I'm going to end my presentation here tonight is to say that there is no other community that I'm aware of that's coming in this year that has weathered the pandemic the way we've weathered it and has continued to provide the services to our residents, including our businesses, with the restaurant assistance program and some of the other things we've done for the senior citizens and some of the other groups, and still end our year with being 99% funded. That's a tribute to the leadership of this board and the guidance of this board and the direction we've received and the support we have received from this board to get to this point. And if no one has any questions at this point, I'm going to turn my presentation over to Chief Crease for the presentation of the police department budget.
Thank you, Mark. Mr. Mayor, members of the board, and members of the community that hopefully have a moment to join us or watch in on YouTube later. I want to start by just introducing with me today is Deputy Chief Jim Levicki, our Deputy Chief of Supports Services, and Deputy Chief Todd Williams, Deputy Chief of Operations. I couldn't be here without their hard work, their support. We're joined by many others at the police department, but when it comes to budget preparation, Andy and Laura are just, critical to make sense of this and help us, help keep us really informed so we can make the best decisions on an ongoing basis throughout the year. Like Mark alluded to, the last year was, in one word, just crazy. I mean, really challenging. And what we presented here is very much of what I would call a maintenance or status quo budget for your consideration. It does not present any personnel additions or changes. I'd like to highlight a couple, just a couple key points of last year. Obviously, there were a lot of adjustments made throughout the year due to the COVID pandemic. A lot of different needs for the community and different ways for us to try and serve those needs. And unfortunately, it's probably still fresh in a lot of our minds, the really unprecedented threats that our community faced, particularly during the summer. Just one little metric, we participate in a partnership called NIPUS, and NIPUS includes a mobile field force, which is a crowd disorder unit, and they were here in town staged if needed on multiple occasions. And in a typical year, well, let me say this, in 2019, NIPUS Mobile Field Force was activated either in standby or deployment mode 30 times in 2019. In 2020, NIPUS Mobile Field Force was called to assist 159 times. 6 of those directly to the benefit and aid of Vernon Hills. So I think that just highlights some of the things that we kind of weathered and went through. There's some fortunately, less exciting things, but some recent laws that have passed required a lot of expungements of either cannabis or juvenile matters, and Deputy Chief Levicki and his team have done a great job making sure we meet all those deadlines and comply with those laws. And there's been a number of personnel assignments and promotions made throughout the year. Our goals this year really, and with quite a lot of excitement, we look forward to re-engaging the community on a face-to-face basis. We know that can't happen overnight, but we certainly look forward to some of the special events taking place and being a part of the community in those special events. We're looking forward to scheduling a Citizen Police Academy in the fall. We would normally do that in the spring, but we think it's, a pretty good bet that come fall we can actually do that and have many other chances to re-engage our residents, our visitors, and our businesses in the community. So presented for you tonight for the police department, I'm asking for consideration of a total police department budget of $11,067,546. And I'll answer any questions, or I would ask if someone would like to make a motion and we can move on to another section.
Where would we move to next?
We're going to go to police dispatch next, but I think it's traditional that you'd consider the police department budget first in that amount.
Gotcha. With regard to officer replacements, where are we at with that, and what are our expectations?
Sure. Do you mind if I put that off till the BFPC portion of the presentation? Because I'm going to address that.
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
The yes part is I understand that you're going to be looking at tests and things of that.
No.
But I guess the no part is, how many do we have in the academy right
Sure.
now? Do we expect anybody to, what are our expectations?
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
retirements and things of that nature that we need to be
Yeah.
thinking about, so that, I know that at certain junctures in time, we've authorized additional officers to allow us then to kind of proactively
Certainly.
approach retirements and things.
Let me address that. I can certainly get to that point. So, yeah, a few years ago, I presented the board an option for a 3-year transitional officer program. So that adds a 44th and 45th sworn member. We've been hovering around 41 sworn this year. We've had some retirements, and we've hired some people, 3 sworn officers. But the COVID has presented a struggle for us. The police academies were shut down for a good portion of the year. We were not able to do a original appointment eligibility list in the spring, so we've been using our lateral appointment process this year. And in fact, just yesterday, we swore in an officer that came to us from another Lake County Suburban Police Department. So, so we have another 2 active vacancies we're working on, and then we held on to one of the reductions in expenses that we presented to the board earlier, was holding off for 6 months on those 2 transitional officers. And then when we got to the winter, I recommended the manager that we hold off another 6 months. So we really are going the entire year without filling those 2. It's noteworthy we did budget for those 2 positions this year as initially requested, and we hope to establish an original appointment list. And we have slots in, I think, Todd, September? Yeah. We have slots in the police academy in September. It's certainly our hope that we can run it by then. I think we'll meet the needs. It continues to be a challenge, but we still are also seeing somewhat of a depressed level of community activity. as everybody comes out and goes back to work and all that, that'll uptick. But the last 12 months have seen some decline in police activity. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, sir.
And your overall calls for service were actually down this last year, correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
yes.
Put it down, what, about 3,000 from 2018?
I'm sorry, what are you referring to, Mr. Mayor?
Calls for service. I mean, we had over 29,000 in 2018, 29,000 in 2019, and 26,000, is that accurate?
Yes, sir. So page 92,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we absolutely saw, there were a few months there where there wasn't much going on at all in town. And we've now seen a steady uptick, but there are certain activities that continue to be a little depressed. Unfortunately, some complicated matters have been more than, on a higher than average basis. Domestic disputes, one of those things that come to mind. We all know that traffic volume went down, but driving behavior went the opposite way. So, our officers are out there engaged in focus on hazardous moving violations.
Okay.
Okay. Would you like to ask for a motion to approve the police department budget before we move on, where you're looking at the amount here?
Yeah, a motion to approve the police department budget, the amount of $11,067,546.
Second.
There's a second. I'll ask the prior chief, does this look like it's in line? Having Mike said?
Yes, sir. This is absolutely in line.
Yeah.
And like I said before, my hat's off to the police officers because they've had to really, really reshape how they did their jobs this year.
Yes.
And with about 5 less officers than they normally do.
Yeah. Okay. There's no other comments or questions, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye?
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster, Marport.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll move on. So the next topic is police dispatch. This is tab O of your binder, or page 166. A couple of highlights here. The board's aware that we have worked with partners, continuing to look for efficiencies in police communications. I can report to the board, although not finalized, there's actually been, in recent months, very positive progress in our work with 21 other entities throughout the county. We now have all the major players in Lake County have agreed on the future of our technology and information system. This is called the CAD and RMS and JMS, the management system for police records, and CAD for police and fire. Although those negotiations are still ongoing, so I can't go into great detail, it is really quite an accomplishment to see all of the dispatch centers and all of the major entities within Lake County all coming together and agreeing on one future. Because if we can combine and agree on one technology for information sharing, that's the grease for the wheels to see further, communication system, partnership and, regional consolidation. So I'm happy to
Sheriff's
report.
Office?
Yes, sir, it does. Yes. So we continue to work there. There's been other improvements made within our dispatch center in some technologies. And then within our dispatch center, we continue to really have a two-prong approach. We want to improve our partnership and efficiencies within our current partners, which is largely the Countryside Fire Protection District that we run our communication center jointly with, and the Village of Libertyville, both their police and fire. But we're not stopping there. We're continuing in the investment, and although I don't have a presentation for you, I certainly expect later this year, likely to be back with a request for additional engagement with this 21-member partnership to continue that movement forward, because we can't stop investing and improving our current center, but I think long-term, we all see opportunities to do better in Lake County. We have 7 public safety answering points throughout the county. And it's just growing up that way. And if you looked at it from a bird's eye view, you'd say this doesn't make a lot of sense. And frankly, it doesn't. But there's not a real easy, smooth path to improve that. But I'm committed to working on that. And I'm sure later this year I'll be back with you talking more about how we further that.
So you don't see a clear path towards us garnering additional customers? for lack of a-
No, I don't like the word customer, with all due respect, I wouldn't use the word customer.
Okay.
We are looking for stronger partnerships, and I think the best partnerships come in real, true joint governance, rather than us being a provider and others being, receivers of that service.
Okay.
Okay.
With I guess the ongoing improvements in dispatch, is there a correlation also between that and actual response times, whether it's for the police
Yeah.
or for the fire department?
Yes, sir. In particular, on the edges of the jurisdiction or on vehicles that are moving through our jurisdiction, the risk with multiple PSAPs, with multiple dispatch centers, particularly when they are in different systems, is that you might have the wrong jurisdiction. I'll give you a brief story. About a year ago, I'm driving northbound at night and see an obvious impaired driver on I-94, approaching 120. I called 911, and before we actually got a police officer with me to pull over that car, we were in the village of Round Lake. We had passed through, and I had been handed off through 3 dispatch centers, trying to get a police officer to catch up to pull over this impaired motorist. That's very frustrating, and it's not the best service that we can provide. Even if we had multiple dispatch centers, if they're all on one synchronized system, we fix that. We make a stop in Gurnee where I wanted to see that car pulled over. Instead, I had to follow this impaired driver through multiple jurisdictions on a long drive. So that's just an example of the type of challenge we're trying to overcome, along with some real cost efficiencies.
Cell phone problems too? I mean, where sometimes the cell phones go to the wrong?
I don't know that you could say it's a cell phone problem, but it is the fact that when the cell phones hit certain towers, though the technology has to kind of guess which center you're going for. And that's why when you call 911, the first question you get is, where is your emergency? They want to know where you are, because you might be connected to the wrong answering service or answering station. Any other questions on dispatch? If not, then for your consideration, there's a requested budget for police dispatch of $2,868,025.
I have one more question. So
Yes, sir.
what is the potential time frame for this consolidation? What are you looking at?
To say consolidation is just a really big word. There's not a central plan right now. You would talk to different entities, they might have different goals. Our current accomplishment right now is agreeing on the technology that we can all work on. To get all of the agencies on that technology is a multi-year plan, just to get the technology together. To bring partners together to decide where consolidation can actually take place, it's multi-years, but right now we don't even have that clear established. We're working on it, we're talking together, and there's a lot, but it is truly the most complex organizational project I've ever been involved in. And somehow I've been gifted with this leadership role in this entity, and I'm still trying to figure out how that happened. But I serve as a chairman of the operations committee. I don't know how I got here. It's
You didn't forget to show up at the first meeting, did you? I mean,
really a challenge.
'cause that can happen.
But I know there's a lot of interested and willing entities at the table. It's just very, very complex, the way the revenues come in from the state, how our current infrastructure is set up. And don't get me wrong, we deliver high-quality service. You know, Vernon Hills Countryside Dispatch Services is amongst the best you're going to find anywhere. There are always improvements and efficiencies to be gained when you have the entire county. And I'll just give you an example. DuPage County has very similar demographics as we do in Lake County. And they are served by 2 dispatch centers. Importantly, they only have 2 ETSB emergency telephone system boards. I think we have 17 in Lake County. And those are all legal entities. So there's just real challenges ahead of us. I wish there was an easy path.
And the population of DuPage County is what, twice the size of our county?
I don't think so, sir. I think it's very similar.
You think so?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Anyone
So
else?
how many dispatch areas are there?
So in Lake County, there's actually 7 different public safety answering points, dispatch centers.
Right.
You're
Yeah,
gonna quiz me on them?
No, I'm just trying, I'm trying to.
So Mundelein, I'll tell you, Waukegan, the city of Waukegan, Lake County Sheriff, Gurnee, Mundelein, Foxcom.
Fox Lake or Lake?
Yeah, Foxcom, Lake Zurich, Vernon Hills, and did I mention Mundelein?
Glenview.
Deerfield, I'm not even counting, they're not part of this 21 town 911 consolidation. So, because some of the Lake County towns have actually joined Cook County Center.
Yep.
And so you've got Deerfield, Highland Park, Lake Forest, Lake Bluff are all served by Glenview Communication Center.
Okay.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve the $2,868,000?
I don't think we do, but I motion it.
Okay, $2,868,025. Okay,
I motioned it.
motion and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call?
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye?
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster, Markwart.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, sir. The next tab S is not much to look at. This is our DUI subfund. We are not recommending any expenditures out of this fund this year. There was a decrease, this is tab S, by the way, if I didn't mention. There was a decrease in the funds going in because, again, there was less traffic, less outdoor events and bars being opened, and less impaired motorists, meaning less impaired motorist enforcement. We don't have any anticipated expenditures. If something does come up during the year that we think wasn't budgeted but would be appropriate, we would come back to the village board with an ordinance requesting, because there are funds here, there's just no anticipated expenditures. Before we spend anything, we come back to the board, present an ordinance for your consideration. And I don't believe we need any action taken on a $0 fund.
Okay,
So That moves us then to tab T, and this is the drug forfeiture fund, page,
Just,
I'm sorry.
even though there's a balance in the fund, I mean,
I-
don't we need to approve that there is,
A $0.
well, that there's a balance there, right?
You're not approving an expenditure for next year, next fiscal year? So I don't think a motion's necessary,
Okay,
just because you're not appropriating any funding.
okay.
When there are expenditures, what are they typically used for the DUI?
Well, it's a pretty broad set of, a wide swath of public safety needs we could meet with that. So I'm trying to remember, yeah. In fact, in the last year, we came to you with the expenditure for body worn cameras. Remember, it was about a $10,000 expenditure. We came here, it came from there. You passed an ordinance allowing for the transfer and use of those funds. So the next tab, T as in Tom, is on page 192 of your book. This is a drug forfeiture fund, a very similar fund to the DUI fund. Here, we are planning for an expenditure to continue the funding of the automatic license plate reader system. And we think that's just a very appropriate use of those funds this year.
That's the ongoing annual fees for
Yes, sir.
maintaining the records and.
That's correct. Yeah, it's a leased system. We don't own those, we
Right.
lease that system. So that's $20,000.
Is that the system that you were talking about
The license plate reader
that's
system.
set up at various
Yes,
points?
yes, sir.
And that's been set up already?
It's been set up. It was very delayed due to COVID. And there's been some IDOT engagement that we weren't able to place them in the preferred locations, but we're optimistic about recent communications with the vendor and IDOT that they're going to be able to be moved to the improved locations. We're still encouraged by the technology. I don't have a great story to tell you here, but they have, Deputy Chief Williams could probably give you a sense. They have helped us in some cases, yes. Todd, anything you want to say? You got a microphone?
No, they've been helpful. We've used them, you know, when there's different crimes reported. We've checked them, looking for cars, plates, things like that. We like Chief said, we don't have a knockout success story right here to give you, but we have been using them and they've been helpful. Sometimes they're just helpful to give us a color or a direction and give us a sense of what happened. Again, they're in strategic places, the best we could kind of go with, but we're still working with IDOT. We're really optimistic and hopeful that when we can move several of them, we'll probably have a lot more to report back.
Is IDOT uncomfortable with using the right-of-way or using their poles?
No, it's a right-of-way issue, but we ran into some legacy rules that they seem to be willing to re-examine. And so, and again, the big thing that really mucked this up was COVID. They couldn't travel, the vendor couldn't really work. They have offset all of the time on the contract, so we weren't paying for services that weren't deployed. Any other questions?
The technical one on these cameras, are they affected by the weather? I mean, as far as snow and rain and all that fun
Yes.
stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been working with the vendor on that. They've been very responsive to us. Sometimes, a couple of times, we've gotten ice and snow covering the solar panel. Takes a little bit for that to wear off. They've increased the battery packs for us, and they've increased the solar panels. So they're very responsive, and they seem to be working better each and every time.
We had a meeting just today. Today, we had a meeting.
Yeah, I had a meeting with them just today. I'm encouraged.
Okay, so there are some kinks.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Enough said.
Okay.
So are you looking for 20 or, because page 195 says 19, so is it 20,000 or 19?
20,000, sir.
20,000, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, was there a motion to approve the drug forfeiture fund budget of 20,000?
So made. Second. Yeah.
Motion is second.
Give
Roll
Mike
call.
the first, I'll take the second.
Okay. Roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees
Aye.
Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Craig,
Oh,
Say aye, or whatever.
are you there? Earth to Craig. Okay.
Craig?
Schultz.
Say aye, Craig.
Okay, why don't we keep going?
Yeah.
You put him down, yeah.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Okay. Motion carried.
He went out to dinner.
Taco abstains.
Yeah.
Okay,
Total
Mr.
Fire and Police Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The last tab is tab J. This is the Fire and Police Commission. I alluded to, on an earlier question, but I think Deputy Chief Williams could probably give just a little bit of overview of where we're going with our hiring process.
Yeah, recruitment and retention issues, it's a topic that all law enforcement agencies probably in the U.S. are dealing with. We've observed lower numbers of applicants over the last few years. We continue to look for ways to market ourselves in hopes of attracting a diverse workforce. We're networking with all of our police counterparts and agencies in the area, bouncing ideas and constantly talking about different ways, going to job fairs, et cetera, advertising, things like that. So recently, this past year with COVID, many of the police academies were closed or had to be shut down in the middle of the process, which meant those agencies utilizing the academies had hired employees now that weren't sworn police, worthy on the street yet. So it was problematic. We saw that kind of coming, if you will, anticipated that. We worked with the Fire and Police Commission and implemented several lateral processes over the last year and a half. And, which were very successful. I mean, the good news is that we consistently get good numbers when we do draw a lateral process from a wide variety of agencies in this area. They have to have current law enforcement experience in a comparable type setting. And, the fact that we're getting these good numbers on laterals and solid candidates is symbolic of the fact that we think that Vernon Hills continues to be an attractive community to work for and to work in.
And with that said, we absolutely hope to have an original appointment list this spring. Recruitment, with establishing a list that we can put people in the academy in September. So this budget request of $17,900 covers all of the expenses that we anticipate needing for recruitment needs this year.
Any other comments or questions from the board? Is there a motion to approve Fire and Police Commission budget of $17,900?
So made. Second.
Motion is second. Roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim. Aye. Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Abstain.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Just as a point of order, do we need to take a short recess to ensure that trustee?
I'm trying to make contact with him as we speak.
Okay.
Also, before Dave Brown takes the stage for the Public Works, Kyle is here. He can pick up where I abruptly left off, and can answer the questions that you may have and finish up the presentation on behalf of the Finance Department.
Okay, so we'll go back to the slideshow.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the slideshow. Mark left off, my understanding is on the police pension fund.
Well, the last page was explanation of department,
Okay.
5%.
What page is it?
There are no page
Yeah, there are no page numbers, I just realized
For the
that.
purposes of future reference.
Yep.
Page numbers are always welcome on PowerPoint.
My math says it'd be page 16. Is what page number the police pension fund would be on.
Police pension fund.
You can go back to that again.
Yep.
Which one to stay?
Okay. All right. So real quickly, I will go over the explanation of department changes that are greater than 5%. The administration area, the administration and finance does include consolidated information technology purchasing going forward. So that budget is up around 7%, and that is just, I think it's more transparent to have it in one location to show our information technology costs in one location. So that's why that's there now. Under police expenditures, it's decreased due to no transfer to dispatch. The fund had a substantial enough fund balance that there was no need for a transfer this year. In terms of judiciary, just the completion of some ongoing matters. And then the general debt and transfer. The transfer last year was around $2.1 million. We are transferring $2.97 million to capital this year. That is to cover the capital expenditures for this year, as well as that fund did, as you remember from last year, did have a slight negative fund balance. And so that will wipe out that negative fund balance and put the capital project fund pretty much at zero, which is really the goal of that fund, is for it to just have, in essence, reserves to fund the program itself. So then I'm going to move on to the next slide with the pension funding. The village has two pension plans. They have the police pension and the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. All sworn officers are covered under the police pension plan. Employees working more than 1,000 hours annually are covered by IMRF if they're not a sworn officer. Sworn police contribute 9.91% of their pay towards their pension. For those that are in IMRF, they contribute 4.5% of their salary towards the pension plan.
The IMRF are entitled to Social Security.
Correct.
Where the police and pensioners are not entitled to Social Security against those earnings.
Correct. On the next page is the budget for the police pension fund. The item I always want to note here is obviously, if I had a crystal ball to tell you what this budget's actually going to look like from an investment return standpoint next year, I think I probably wouldn't be here. I think I'd be doing something else if I knew how the investment market was going to go. So we do budget based off of our actuarial assumptions in this budget, so that is why it looks the way that it does. Unfortunately, and I think a lot of you know, if you've looked at your portfolio around April 30th of last year, COVID hit the market extremely hard right at the end of April. And so for that reason, the liabilities in the fund grew substantially. The actuarial valuation that was done for the plan effective for the end of April is requesting a 15.9% increase to the contribution for this year because there was about a 4% decline in earnings last year. And since the fund already has a close to 7% earnings built into it, that's really like an 11% loss for the year. And so the plan itself is asking for that 15.9% contribution. The positive thing looking at this year is, once again, now we're at we get the good side of the timing, is that this year is getting all of those earnings back because the market's actually above it where it was prior to COVID. And so the fund itself is actually seeing close to a 20% rate of return this year, which is pretty unheard of even in the in the pension funding arena. So really my belief is that we will actually potentially see a decrease in the contribution next year because of that growth in investment earnings this year. So my hope is that this will be a one-year blip of an increase. In terms of overall funding, I think that's always what the board is going to look at is the fund itself is still at a 70% funded rate, which is still in the top echelon of funding for police pensions in the state of Illinois. The last time this was done was 2018, and at that time, Vernon Hills was 41st out of 650 units of local government for their funding of their police pensions. I highly doubt that that has changed substantially over the last few years because everyone has been facing the same market, and I don't think a lot of places have started making larger contributions to their pension plans. So I still believe that the fund itself is funded at a very high level.
At this point, I don't have a question, but I'd like to make a point to my fellow trustees, seeing as how this is my last budget. I go back to when I first was on the board, and a gentleman who was on the board previous to me, the late Don Hook, came before us as he was on the police pension board at that point in time and was looking for the village to make a significant contribution above and beyond the budgeted contribution. This year, it looks like we're budgeting $3,036,000. I think at this juncture in time, based on the numbers that I'm seeing as we go through, we may want to entertain that, or you may want to entertain that when it comes due to, in fact, make that payment, because the marketplace, I think, will lift that boat higher than us retaining those funds in our general fund at that 99% level. I think, we could allow it to slip down to 95 or even 90 and still have plenty of cushion above and beyond our 75% and give ourselves the ability to get way ahead of the curve with regard to the police pension fund, which we have a sole obligation to maintain as opposed to shared obligation with the state on the IMRF. So with that being said, I just want to plant that seed as a point to be thought about as the time grows near to, in fact, make that investment and look at potentially investing those dollars higher. The point that Don made was that the police pension fund allows for a higher level of investment in equities and other riskier investments, although they are considerably safe investments, but they are much more than what we can do with our general fund, which are really limited in the investment. And so I plant that seed for this board moving forward. Again, that's the end of my statement there.
Well, how much additional funds would you think we would add to get the benefit, of the different investments and better returns and so on and so forth?
I think it's always the hard question to answer because, will have people who say 100% funded pension plan isn't a good use of taxpayer money either, because is 100% really going to be what you pay out at the end of the day? I think it's a hard number to really figure out and quantify. I'd have to kind of take a step back and think about where that number would be and talk to some folks before I could feel like I could give a good answer on that. But just in terms of perspective, the pension plan is anticipated to still have a $24.53 million unfunded liability at the end of this fiscal year. And so I'm not saying it's $24 million, obviously, but if you take a quarter of that out, that is going to lower your future contributions as well, because your contributions are based off the fact that the pension plan has to be fully funded by 2040. And so they're building that into their actuarial assumptions, that future cost and that future cost of money that's not earning you that actuarial rate of return. And so that's one of those things that I'd have to work with the actuary on to know what an impact of, let's say, a $5 million contribution would be. to really know what that would look like for future years for planning purposes.
How much are we contributing per sworn officer now? It's over 40,000, or is it even higher than that?
What is it, 19%?
No.
No.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it
Yeah,
comes out,
and
that-
so somewhere around 20 to 25,000, I would
Yeah,
think.
probably between 20 to 40, depending on what level of an officer that they are.
Right.
okay.
What rate of return are we getting on our general fund then, if we were going to move it from there?
On our general fund, we're lucky to get 1%.
'Cause it-
And that's if we had invested in more than 1 year CDs prior to COVID. The interest rate market right now, you're lucky to get 25
nothing.
basis points on anything at this point. So it's not a good market for just general earnings right now and for what we can invest in our general fund.
So even without going into the numbers in concept, you agree with Trustee Schultz's idea of moving to a better investment instead of
The
keeping
concept,
cash?
the concept makes sense in terms of, earning higher, you get higher earnings on that money. The risk obviously for the village and the board is that once you make that contribution,
Can't get it
you
back.
can't take it back. And so that money is going to be in the fund. And so that's kind of the pros and cons that the board will have to weigh at that point is the lower future contributions worth potential loss of flexibility in the general fund?
Right.
And so I think that will be definitely something that I think we would want to have that conversation with the board prior to something like that happening.
Okay.
The next slide is on the Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund. So for fiscal year 1920, the Village of Vernon Hills' contribution to IMRF was $606,815. The village is currently funded at 82% funded level. For those that have been around for a while, you will remember prior to 2008, IMRF was 100% funded. During 2008, IMRF did allow municipalities to take a lower required contribution. That will also, just like the police pension fund, has to be fully funded by 2040. And so that number also will catch up eventually to that 100% funded level. Currently, the village has a $5.92 million unfunded liability for their IMRF. There's a slide on here in terms of capital over $100,000 in the budget. I know that the board has reviewed this, I believe, in January. So I'm not going to sit and look at this, and I know it's going to come up here in a little bit as well. But that's just kind of a display of the capital over $100,000 in the budget. I'm assuming this was already discussed, but I think it's always just something that's important to keep, I think, reiterating, is that even through COVID and through this budget that does have, the village using a little over $1 million in reserves, the village still has a fund balance close to 99%, which is above and beyond the fund balance policy. And so I think the village is still in a very strong financial position after going through this pandemic.
And 99% says that we have 99% of the funds in the bank to pay for the 21, 22 fiscal year without collecting one penny in additional revenue.
I always look at it as you could run the 22-23 budget with no revenue, with the money you have in the bank.
That's good.
And that is good.
And
It has been good. It's been good for,
Right.
it seems like ever.
Yes, and our policy is to maintain 75%.
Correct.
So that is one of the criteria that appears to be high on the list of the rating agencies for future bonding, so that we can maintain our AAA standing, which gets us the lowest possible interest rate.
As long as the state does not tank. If the state, I always have this discussion with folks is, you can have all the fund balance you want in the world, but if the state of Illinois' bond rating dips even further, it's a factor in terms of what every community in Illinois' bond rating is their region. And so there does come that point where it is important for the rating agency, but if other regional factors start to affect it, everyone may be in the same boat, unfortunately.
But would we be in a better
As long as
part
you,
of the
We'd
boat
be in
than
a
everyone
bigger
else?
boat.
Like others would be in steerage class and we'll be at the top, or?
you'd be at the top from the standpoint that normally what rating agencies want to see is they want to see that you have a policy and they want to see that you're in compliance with your policy. You get brownie points if you're above your policy. And so that's where you would be at the higher level because you're not right at the policy, you're above it. So,
Yeah, we're in a Boston whaler as opposed to an Old Town canoe.
Yeah.
The Old Town canoe is fiberglass, just like the Boston whaler, but the Boston whaler calls itself unsinkable. So,
Yeah, But we're on the top floor of the Titanic listening to the music instead of, down in the basement level.
yeah.
and so unless there's any other questions on kind of the overall, I will turn it over to Dave to do Public Works.
Yeah. Good analogy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, yeah, I gotta remember what my question was. Yeah, and this was the discussion that Mark said he had on
Sales tax?
innumerable occasions with you regarding internet sales
Yep.
versus COVID. We took a 20% hit.
Yep.
How much of that was COVID? How much of that was internet sales? And is our plan going forward, taking into account internet sales growing and at what rate?
Correct. So it is. As of right now, internet sales is still tricky to fully know what we're looking at in terms of the impact it's going to have. IML, I believe, is projecting about 11% increase to use tax this coming year, which is how the state has articulated online sales previously. Effective for May 1, we will start getting all internet sales as part of our monthly tax collections from the state of Illinois. So when I did the budget, I took that 20% loss that we had. I wrapped back in that 11% increase to use tax because now it's going to be impossible for us to separate it. So the use tax line is going to go away. It's going to be just in our sales tax. So I took that 11% amount into that consideration with a little bit of what I believe will be some economic growth coming out of the pandemic, that there will be some amount of economic activity that occurs. So that's where I settled at that 5% decline budget to budget, because I still think there is going to be some economic impacts and some economic changes that the public is going to make based off of the pandemic, and just still some joblessness and everything else. And so that's where I landed at that around 5% decline, was I wrapped back that number in. But I also will be extremely happy if I can sit here and say that the numbers came in better than we anticipate.
Right.
It's, at this point, the best guess that we have is looking at the IML projection on use tax. I will get a really good indication with that first collection in May for the January sales if we hit the mark or not.
That 11% growth, that's 11% of the use tax
Correct.
growing. And use tax is about, what, 10% of sales tax?
It's 10 to 15% of sales
Yeah.
tax. So that's why the numbers don't align to that 20%. We're still down 5, some economic growth, is because we're doing that 11% on a smaller number.
Much smaller number. All right, well, it seems like you've got it into your projections, so that's all that we can ask.
But that 11%, that's across the board for the state?
Correct.
What they're-
That's their
so-
best guess. They really don't have a good
So
idea.
that's not looking at each individual community in terms of what types of businesses they have and.
Well, and it's really going to come down to how much your community shops online. And
Right.
that's because no one really, even though you're supposed to, I don't think a lot of people actually tell the IRS how much online sales they actually do in a given year.
Right.
So there isn't a lot of good numbers yet in terms of how much people are buying online. Obviously this year, I think people started buying a lot more online. But it's still a little bit of an unknown on a community level.
Well,
But
the use tax will be the sharing of those numbers that are reported by those people that are collecting it on our behalf.
Correct.
Again, Amazon, I believe, is doing that now,
Yep.
which which is one of the big dogs. So it should be significant, but still it's minute. And you're absolutely right. I think the average person claims less than $100 in internet purchases.
For sure. But so are we generating less from CDW or other entities or is that unrelated?
I would say not necessarily CDW. I think we have just in terms of brick and mortar department stores and those kind of areas did get hit the most during COVID because I think people chose to shop online and also they were closed for periods of time. And so I think the consumer behavior change might be is that someone will buy something from Dick's online instead of going into Dick's itself. It won't have a tremendous impact on our budget, but it will have an impact on the business itself.
CDW has a nexus here, so everything they sell in the state of Illinois is reported and is collected. So that CDW is not the problem. The problem is exactly as he just elucidated to the Dick's and the Targets, be it online, if they're not collecting the taxes. And I don't know if Dick's is, I know Amazon is, and that was kind of leader, but I don't know how many of these other larger retailers, and then all the small retailers, none of them are collecting. Well, I shouldn't say none. If they don't have a nexus here, then they don't collect.
But were we making more from the fact that CDW was physically here?
We've probably made the same from CDW all along. Because anything that's, CDW only pays us sales tax on those items that they sell to users in Illinois.
Okay.
The rest of the country, I don't know what they're doing with the other 49 states.
It comes down to the individual laws in terms of, most of the time it's the standard has been a brick and mortar location in that state has traditionally been a requirement to collect online sales tax.
But it's only at the state level. It's not at the municipal level in any way. We weren't getting.
Yeah, so CDW is definitely collecting in Florida and here, because I know they have a physical presence in Florida.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Glad to present our operation budget. You'll find it in tab E. I think everyone is. I do not know the actual page number.
48.
48, thank you. You will find that this budget is very similar to last year's budget. It's $117,000 increase over last year. That's 1.8%. It's substantially similar to last year. The difference is some of the capital improvement items have been moved into my operation budget. If it's under 25,000, those have shifted over. Some of those are VHAC improvements. Similar to other departments, and everyone in this room has experienced COVID. In terms of our operations, we still needed to address flooding, we needed to maintain our buildings, we needed to plow streets. It did give us some opportunities that we didn't have as many events to shift some of the responsibilities and priorities of my department. So we have done more outside projects in-house. Some of the things that we know were very important was trying to address some of the sedimentation issues that were going into Lake Charles. And so my staff's been out there working along the golf course and removing some of the buckthorn and installing blankets that have a woodland grass seed. So just really tried to shift our operations. One of the bigger challenges, right, was we wanted to do the sports fields. So in January, it was approved, and within 4 months, the challenge that this board had asked us to accomplish was there were sports that were planned to be played on May 1. It came in on budget. We all were there the day of substantial completion, and we stood around and we were just so excited that all of our hard work and we were successful. And then we all sat there for a second and looked at each other and just understood no one will be kicking a soccer ball, no one will be playing lacrosse, and it really hit home to us. But that being said, we're glad that it was accomplished. It's just one example of the many things that we've been working on and the accomplishments that we've had. Very proud to work with Director Atkinson on some of the major projects that this board has approved and Mike has walked through the Plan Commission and the board for approval. Obviously Hawthorne 2.0, critical thing that the board approved, and we're proud that the site permits were issued and we were able to work through those. And certainly the old Darling Farm, we always wondered what that would ultimately be, and we now know what it will become. So in terms of dollars, we ended up pulling in review and engineering fees over $500,000 on just engineering review and inspection fees. So we've been busy. Some other things that were really important. The safety of our community is just critical to us. There's been a lot of review and work with LDOT in terms of what should we do at Greg's and Huntington. Very, very pleased that we were able to accomplish that in conversations with whether it's Mark or whether it's our police chief. We do think it has made a difference, so appreciate that the board did find funds for us to accomplish that. We're doing really good from a flood control standpoint. Some of the other communities surrounding us had some struggles. We've had an orderly development of this village over many, many years. I know, Roger, we've overlapped for 28 years. I know Tom Cook, and to all the board members, very proud in terms of stormwater management and what we've been able to accomplish. We have major regional detention facilities, and we take meticulous care in terms of when a permit's issued on their grading and where that water goes. We recently had an audit, and they audit us once every 20 years on floodplains, and the DNR came in. They looked at everything we've been doing over that period of time, and they gave us a clean bill of health. They had no concerns of how we've been managing our village. We continue to take care of plowing, environmental areas, open space management. This village, I think, for a period of time was known for pro-development and all the development that's happening in our community. The hidden thing that we've accomplished is we've always obtained some parcels that have created a great green belt throughout our community, around the lakes, going through the spine of the town. Well, those things need to be maintained. Harvey Lake, Lake Charles, surrounding green belts, et cetera, et cetera. And we have a multi-year, multi-location contract that started 2 years ago, and there's substantial changes that have happened in all those locations. So thank you for funding that also. Those are merely some of the things that we have been working on, and we'll continue. Transportation infrastructure, the Lakeview project is scheduled for 2023, and we are moving through the phase 2 process. Village Manager Mark just signed some of the appraisals, and we need to start moving through land acquisition, get ready, and the federal government will fund much of it at the 80% level, 20% for our village. So a good investment in our infrastructure. One of the things that's very important for our Public Works Department is the management and leadership components and succession planning. Thank you very much for adding an administrative staff person last year. It has made all the difference in the world that we have 2 people who can really help on the administrative end. So it's Mary, Carissa, and myself. And then it really frees up my staff to do things they do best. So, you know, they're out in the field, they're accomplishing a lot more, and that one position made all the difference. So I thank you also for that. With our public facilities, our roofs, we're looking at, we're making good progress on the roofs of the various buildings and HVAC systems. This HVAC system right now is transitioning over from the first phase to the second phase, and that is actually, we had to practice to make sure that we had enough heat today for this meeting. We didn't want this budget discussion to go forward, and everyone's sitting with their coats on, so.
I wore a sweater, extra sweater and everything.
Yeah. So really, that's my presentation, and it's a $5,807,187,000 proposed budget, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Just a kind of a quick question on an accounting type thing. On page 63, there were some numbers that were changed, and it said, I'd never seen this in the budget before, adjusted from 48 to 72 to adjust for reimbursement being, is that like when I make a mistake on one of the lines in my checking account? Is that because something was marked somewhere elsewhere, and then one is 72, the other one's 150, and they're both adjusted?
What page number are you on?
63,
Fuel and lubrication.
fuel and lubrication, and one item says adjusted from 48,000 to 72,000 for reimbursement being reported as a revenue instead of credited against expense.
Is that the people that we sell the gas to?
Is that?
Fire department and.
Got it,
the
okay.
schools.
Now I understand, all right. Thank you.
Yes, to accommodate our other
Yeah,
partners.
who are our partners, just a reminder again?
Yes, we have Countryside, the Park District, Library District.
The schools?
I'm drawing a blank as far as the schools.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now that makes, yeah, now that makes,
Okay.
thank you.
I've got an off-the-wall question. Does anybody know what kind of trains are running on the EJ&E? Long ones.
Aren't they mostly still coal trains coming from?
Well, that's
Elko?
what I thought. People have said they haven't seen a coal train. All they see is service trains. In other words, someone bringing a tanker or a boxcar to a spur someplace east of here. Okay, nobody has an answer. That's fine too.
I don't know what the material is. I know how many there are. There are two round trippers, and
Well, there was 2 round trips at night for the coal, but no one seems to believe that there's coal being moved anymore, either from Great Lakes, from Lake Michigan, or to I don't know which way it was going, from the Port of Michigan, or if it was going to the power plant in Zion.
Well, I know, I thought it was, what's the plant in Waukee? Isn't there a power plant there still?
That was. I got a report today, and I meant to bring it in and give it to you. It's from Santana, who's reporting on where they get their electricity from, and it was like 30% is still coal powered.
Yeah.
And then a bigger piece is gas. The next biggest is nuclear, and then there was all others, which I'm assuming is backfeed from windmills, solar panels, privately held.
I accept the challenge, and I will track that down for you.
Thank you. Back burner challenge.
Okay.
So a motion to approve $5,807,187.
Second.
Motion is second. Further comments or questions? If not, roll.
President Byrne,
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye?
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Marport.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. The next item is the capital subfund, tab L. and it's on page 144. The proposed budget is $2,371,200. Substantially, this is our annual road program, which is the $1.1 million project that has been approved by the board previously. We have open bids, and it will be presented for board approval at the next meeting. Favorable bids because we are partnering with Mundelein and Libertyville once again.
And just so I'm clear again, the MFT is going down, but we are getting grants that are making up for it, and what's the expected life expectancy or continuation of those grants,
Yeah.
allowing for the MFT to cover our expenditures?
Yeah, so the MFT is going down slightly this coming year just because of less collections on their part. The Rebuild Illinois grant program, which is what you're speaking of, the village is receiving about $570,000 a year. That is a 3-year grant program. So we had year 1 last year. We'll have year 2 this coming budget year, and there should be another cycle of grants for the following year. Always subject to the state of Illinois changing their mind, but that is the plan as of right now.
And we're comfortable we're getting this year's grant.
Is that all federal funds?
Also, bond issuances by the state of Illinois. It was bond issuances that they did post the first budget that Governor Pritzker passed when it went in office. Part of that discussion was about the online, or was about sports betting, as well as
Cannabis?
marijuana. Was going to help offset some of these costs for their bond issuance.
Okay.
Additionally, in this account is some of the other preventive maintenance projects that we have. There's IT equipment inclusion and some maintenance for our various buildings. I know one item that was discussed, and I was remiss, it probably will be considered for the Muni budget, is we did take a look at the carpeting at the Muni, and it is in need of repair. We did get a price on it, and it's about $16,500 if they're able to still keep the business open while they do the carpeting. If not, it's another $2,650, but the Kemper feels that we don't have to spend that extra money, should that be considered. But that wouldn't be in this budget, it would be in the Kemper budget, and that's going to be presented into the future. That's my presentation. I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the capital sub-fund budget for $2,371,200? Is there a motion?
So made.
Second.
Motion second. No further comments or questions? Roll call, please.
President Vernon.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Dr. Oka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Harcourt.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you very much. Next section, Motor Fuel Tax Fund, tab M. And it starts on page 154. The proposed dollar amount, $1,619,000. This is the account that has the road program. We've been audited recently for motor fuel tax. Did very well in the audit, and it's really more of a cleanup of some of the accounting for them. So doing well there. As I mentioned before, we also are going through the land acquisition stage. So there's $519,000 included for land acquisition. Also, That's how we come up with the dollar amount I just mentioned. Those are really the two items included in this account.
Yeah, page 158 versus
158.
157.
Yeah, 157 has the one,
Right.
1619, and 158 says the FY 21-22 budget is 185,300.
Right.
What you're approving on the PowerPoint is the expenditures. The last page is the difference between revenues and expenditures. Does that make sense?
No, because it
not
hasn't
consistent
been
with
that way,
everything.
right,
It's not
with
consistent.
everything else.
Page 157 with the 1,619,000 is the correct number.
Right.
what-
So
yeah, do you see
that is the
158?
total
I
expenditures.
see
And
180.
page
yeah.
158 with the 185.3 is,
So we don't approve the difference between the two. We're just approving the expenditures. If you
Oh,
look
okay.
at page,
Yeah, it was the same for.
okay.
if you look at page 156,
That's where the
you'll
other
see
ones
that
we
the
saw,
revenues are,
Summary, outflows, expenditures.
Right, Because the same is true with tab L.
right.
Public Works, always being a problem.
Okay, any further comments or questions on this one? If not, is there a motion to approve the motor fuel tax fund budget of $1,619,000?
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markle.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next account, Metro Parking Subfund, it's tab P, and it starts on page 175. One thing due to COVID that we decided to do, noticing, with a conversation with one of our CSOs, they are really saying that there were 5 or less cars that were parked there. And so we decided not to plow the southerly lot, and that saved us another $16,000 to $18,000 by just blocking it off and not having us plow it. So some benefit there. The proposed budget is $105,000, $960. These are normal and customary items that you've seen in previous years. No real change.
And we talked about this a couple months ago, about the accrual account being relatively healthy for the future repaving, re-roofing, whatever needs to occur.
Yes, that's correct.
And the price of the bathroom is still $250,000?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or questions on this? Is there a motion to approve the Metro Parking Sub-Fund of $105,960?
So made.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye. Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markle.
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next account is the replacement fund for equipment. Last year, all Public Works vehicle purchases were deferred. We were able to work on some things with our existing equipment to extend the life of them. Our Holder sidewalk piece of equipment was one of them. We, instead of buying a new one, which is a substantial cost, $70,000 to $80,000, we bought a $5,000 engine, put it in it, a couple of other changes, and it's going to serve us well. So our fleet crew leader, Scott Churchill, is looking for new ways to extend our budget, and he's doing a really good job at doing that. There was 2 police patrol vehicles that were replaced. I believe one of them was due to an accident and an insurance claim. It was replaced. Don't know all the details on the second one, but that was also replaced. We also work with the golf course. Most of the equipment over there is actually owned by the village, and we work to maintain that. They do some routine maintenance. We do the major work. The dollar amount in this account is proposed at $728,000.
And the vehicle that we authorized tonight, the omnibus, that was on last year's budget. Was that the first one we bought this year?
Second, I believe.
Second, so we'll replace 4 within this 18-month window.
That is the plan, yes, sir. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Any comments or questions from the board? If not, is there a motion to approve the replacement fund budget of $728,000?
So made.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheimer.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markort.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay,
Thank you.
you're done.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dave.
And you'll be around next week when the golf course comes, just in case there's some other things that we want to shuffle off to you at that point.
Okay. Mike Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I can present to you the Community Development Department's budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And consistent with what you've heard from the Police Department and from Public Works, the Development Department will pretty much maintain the status quo budget from last year. In fact, we'll be a little bit less, and I can explain why later on. Given the uncertainty arising from the pandemic, we certainly believe this is an appropriate approach for this upcoming budget year. Oh, excuse me, I should mention that the budget is behind tab H and on page 118. Regarding past accomplishments, and I would echo what Director Brown said earlier, the Community Development Department and the Public Works Department work very closely through these entitlement processes, and it's that collaboration between the departments is critical in identifying important topics related to each development and making sure by the time we get to a public hearing and present and consideration to the village board, we have a good development for the board to consider, and we appreciate all the efforts from Public Works, who plays a key role in all these developments that go before you. Last year, there were, as the board is aware, there were 3 major developments that were brought through the entitlement process and ultimately approved by the village board. And that includes 3 phases of the Hawthorne redevelopment plan. The first phase was preliminary approval of a 3-lot subdivision along Milwaukee Avenue. Also, a 1-lot subdivision on the Carson's property adjacent to Town Line Road. That'll be Sleep Number. And then really the crown jewel would be the redevelopment of the Sears property, which is a fully amenitized mixed-use development that will include 562 apartments, 310 of which will be constructed as part of Phase 1, along with a 53,000 square foot retail restaurant commercial element. We are now moving into the permit phase for that, but the entitlement process is done. Also, the board approved the Darling Farm redevelopment. That's a 900,000 square foot light industrial warehouse development. That's currently under construction. And as the board is aware, they are already looking to expand that development onto the property formerly occupied by the Forge Club. And finally, redevelopment of the former AMC movie theater property along Lakeview Parkway. That'll be replaced with a 188-unit luxury, age-restricted senior apartment development that I would qualify to live in, I can report to you.
All right.
And that one we are expecting submittals for reviews within the next 30 days. Regarding permit activity, we last year we issued 1,477 permits. So up to 300 permits above where our average is. Our construction value was also higher than normal at $165 million. That can be attributed to certain permits that we issued. We issued 2 building permits for the Darling Farm redevelopment. We also issued permits for 33 new
I think his mic is working now.
also a couple of permits for new construction in Corporate Woods. That's the 888 Forest Edge Drive property, the Mr. T property, and then also the Philharmonic Studios, which helped boost those construction values.
Question on that. How much of that is just kind of residual residential? In other words, water heaters and decks and things like that, the value?
Sure. Those fees are usually permits that are picked up by residents
Right.
or a developer as such. And with that knowledge, those fees tend to be lower.
Right.
For decks and driveways and such. So in terms of permit revenue or value, that's a much lower number.
Yeah, any idea what percent?
I would say, just kind of taking a look at this, anecdotally, 15% maybe of it, the most.
So of that 165 million, 30 million would be for residential improvements, and then 135 million would be new construction.
Yeah, well, the 135 million would be the major projects.
Right.
And then everything else would be the 30.
Yeah, so for my compatriots on the school boards and all the other tax and collection bodies, we have built basically structures that have provided you with over $3.25 million worth of new revenues. So we're doing our part to fund all of our partners with new construction that's going to pay them generously in the future years.
Thank you.
That's the bottom line point I was trying to get to, was that we're adding value to this community. We're adding EAV that will in fact pay dividends going forward.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we've been, okay, that's a point well taken. Yeah, we've been doing that again for decades, you know. And the big enchilada is gonna be the redevelopment of the, you know, the mall.
Yep.
And in the agreement we have chiseled out with District 73.
Right, yeah, this does not include any of the TIF district funds that
Right.
will, or TIF district permits to this point in time. They'll all be
Yes, sir.
future. Yeah.
That'll be in the future, yes, sir. And speaking of the future, upcoming goals, our number one goal will always be to continue to provide timely customer support and service, not only to our business community, and we talk a lot about the developments that come through Vernon Hills, and there's been a number of large developments that have come through in the last couple of years, but residents that come into our department for decks and driveways, those are very important customers to us as well. So, and I know the board is aware of that, and we will continue to always keep that as our number one goal. Also, to support the the manager's office and economic initiative opportunities. Our focus will be on all of our retail area, but really with Hawthorne Mall, we've gotten through 3 phases. We have more to go, and so we'll continue to work with them and collaborate with a keen eye on the redevelopment of the Carson's property and certain outlets that can be formed or created along Town Line Road as well. Also, in support of this, I already reviewed with you last year the entitlement processes that the board approved. The focus now has to shift to the permit reviewing and inspection phase. And as you can imagine, with some of these projects, in particular the Sears redevelopment and Everly of Vernon Hills, those reviews have a certain degree of complexity that take a lot more time and an inspection demand too that can be challenging as well. So our focus will remain there. And then regarding staff development, as the board is aware, we've replaced within the last year and a half 2 building inspectors and an administrative assistant, and I can inform you that really all 3 of them are doing a great job. The inspectors, both of them are already certified, one of them in 2 different areas, the other one in 1 area, which is really pretty fast paced because you need to take online courses, study for the tests, and then pass the test. So they're progressing at a really good rate. And then our new administrative assistant has been able to not only perform her job functions at a high level for the community development department, but has also been able to support the manager's office for different initiatives related to senior outreach and communication and those types of things that Assistant Village Manager Petrillo has reviewed with you in the past. So overall, staff development will always be a focus as well, but we're really happy with our new employees. So for this year, the total Community Development Department budget as proposed to you would be $913,319. That's a 9.2% decrease from last year. As the board will recall, I think, well, the main part of that decrease can be attributed to an employee that we needed to keep their salary on the books. This employee had an accident, so they weren't able to work, but they were working through the workman comp process. Ultimately, they were not able to stay employed here, so we no longer have that salary on the books. Also, the numbers reflect what we discussed with the board at the time when the pandemic first took place. So we're maintaining that status quo. So the end result is a budget before you that's 9% less than what you approved last year. So tonight, if the board feels the Community Development Department budget of $913,319 is appropriate, then a motion to approve that budgeted amount is recommended.
You also win the award. It's the first budget that's a palindrome.
I'm sorry, that's a what?
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the community development budget of $913,319?
Motion to approve?
There's a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye.
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. Who's next?
Good evening. I will be presenting 6 accounts tonight, and I've been told by Mark I'm only allowed to say I'm pleased to present one of my accounts, so I'll save my pleasure for later in the evening.
So are you the final 6?
I believe I am.
Okay.
I believe I am. First account this evening will be the committees. That's tab J, page 133. Tab J, page 133. The committee's budget includes funding for the Vernon Hills Seniors Organization. Unfortunately, during most of 2020, programming and activities for our valued seniors were paused and/or suspended due to the pandemic, as seniors were classified as a vulnerable population. However, as the board is aware, to reconnect independent living seniors and their counterparts residing in congregate living facilities, the village created the Senior Outreach Initiative, which included a partnership with a community engagement specialist. Recent events have included mall walks, luncheons, bingo, and other organized and supervised activities to include birthday parties. Within the committee budget is funding for the seniors organization to include facility upkeep, office supplies for their elected board, furniture for the senior center, engagement and programming activities, and transportation services. As the board is aware, we have moved from congregate transportation, or what was known as the Village Senior Bus, to a more personalized senior taxi program, and the fees for this service are included in this account. The board will note there is a savings realized in the senior citizens budget proposal, as the actual cost for the senior transportation are significantly less than staff anticipated. As the board will recall, fiscal year 2021, the budget was prepared prior to the pandemic, and staff estimated that usage would include seniors from congregate living facilities. With the pandemic and its impacts, there has been less need, less desire, or less ability to travel from congregate living facilities. If use of the senior taxi program was to exceed our new estimates for fiscal year 21-22, staff is confident we would be able to identify funds in an existing account and make a transfer as needed to ensure our seniors, all of our seniors, have the mobility to travel for their needs. Staff can field your questions and/or seek a motion to approve the committee's budget, which includes the seniors organization, for $35,850.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve $35,850 budget.
Correct.
Okay, roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster. Aye. Marport.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Second account I'll be presenting this evening is the events budget. You will find that on tab K, page 138. Events budget, tab K, page 138. The events budget includes funding for specific activities that allow for community engagement, recreation, and celebration of our community. The events budget traditionally includes funding for the Arbor Theater Concert Series, the annual Jim and Helen Heyer Fishing Derby, the July 4th Parade, July 4th Fireworks, pageant, and a fall festival event. During the February 16th Village Board meeting, Mark shared a plan that balances current mitigation restrictions with forecasting of what may be permissible as the year progresses, and in taking all factors into consideration, we have prepared a budget that views the 2021 event season through a lens of a best-case scenario for our community. As of this date, we are moving forward with our preparation for the Arbor Theater concerts and pageant. We are aware the fishing derby will not be conducted on its regularly scheduled date, but have requested funding should the village be approached by the VA later this year. We have requested funding for July 4th Parade and fireworks, but will return to the board for direction in late April. And in place of funding for a fall village event, we have instead designated money labeled as a donation. This provides the village with an opportunity to partner with the Park District for either their Rib Fest or a yet-to-be-named pop-up event to be conducted later this year. By planning a donation to the Park District to partner for a hopeful fall event, instead of planning and conducting a fall event on our own, this allows staff to present an events budget that is 13.5% less than the previous fiscal year, yet full funding for all of our traditional community events. This budget is presented in the amount of $95,940. Staff can field your questions on events and/or is seeking a motion to approve the events budget.
Are there any comments or questions from the board?
I just like that we're planning for the best, and we'll see what
Absolutely.
happens. Yeah.
Now, we can also have, we discussed I guess, winter fireworks?
So that is going to be one of the options that the manager's office is going to present in late April. As Mark shared the plan in February of how we'd like to proceed, we're obviously waiting on CDC, Illinois Department of Public Health, guidelines, and perhaps some sort of, say, blueprint of what can be permissible. But as Mark has also shared, planning for events like summer celebration take months. We've reached out to the chair of the Summer Cell Committee, and I believe she shared that she's going to need at least about 90 days' notice for Summer Cell to be effective. Mark has also expressed concerns about, having an event like Summer Cell where it does have a congregate beer tent. There's also the rides, which staff has looked at, and how would that be managed? How would a person be able to go and wipe down every ride after a person has been there? So, as Trustee Cook shared, we are planning for the best, but we're also realistic in what we believe federal and state authorities are going to allow.
So basically what you're saying is the committee chair, when we make the decision about fireworks at the second meeting in April, that is the same date that she needs a go or no-go on summer celebration.
That is correct, sir. And then, as Trustee Marquardt said, if we know at that time that we're not going to be able to conduct Summer Cell, we're going to have a plan before April 30th to share with Melrose Pyrotechnics on what we want to do with the second date for fireworks. So we're going under the scenario that July 4th is going to be permissible, as we have reached out to CFD and the Executive Director of the Park District, Jeff Fougeroux, and we believe there's plenty of space to assemble around NCT Park. There's staging areas that could be used along Rust-Oleum, what was considered the Turner Building, maybe 3 Hawthorne, and other areas going on Lakeview to safely have people view fireworks for July 4th. But the second date, Mark has talked about perhaps shooting them off at New Year's Eve.
Or as part of a later in the year celebration.
Yes, sir.
Pop-up event or some partnered event.
Yes, sir. And we will be coming back to confer with the board at the second meeting in April to share what we forecast as possibilities and look for direction, seek direction then.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that second meeting in April is going to be very important from the standpoint of Summer Cell needs 90 days. Basically, that meeting is 90 days in advance of the scheduled summer celebration event, almost to the day.
Yes, sir.
Well, and if we could develop just a little bit of flexibility in that, if news reports are correct, Great America is looking at attempting to open the rides in that in April. They're still waiting for government permission to do that, but that would be somebody we could keep an eye on if they do and if they're successful.
We agree. We, as the board is aware, we're a member of Visit Lake County, and our counterparts in Gurnee are expressing, the same optimism that we here are. We're hopeful, but I would say all of the communities are also realistic as to what's going to be permissible.
Yeah.
Right. Hopefully, everybody will be vaccinated by then. In any event, is there any other comments or questions from the board?
Motion to approve the events budget, $95,940.
Is there a second?
Second it?
Okay, roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. The next account that will be presented is the summer celebration budget. This is tab N. Tab N as in Nora, page 159. During the February 16th village board meeting, Village Manager Fleschauer shared staff has been working with our various committees and prepared a draft events plan for 2021. As Mark shared, we are cautiously optimistic that we will be able to conduct some events this year. For the larger festival-type events, we will balance guidance from the state, Illinois Department of Public Health, CDC, and community expectations into our decision-making process. As shared, as we just mentioned, there are monetary commitments for acts, vendors, and fireworks, and staff will need to confer with the village board during the late April 2021 board meeting and receive direction. In anticipation of the mayor asking who we have lined up for entertainment should summer celebration be conducted, Jefferson Starship and Fuel were the bands that we had under contract in 2020 and would be slated for an event in 2021. Again, this budget was prepared knowing that it takes months for the committee to plan and host this 4-day event. We hope for an ideal recovery from the pandemic, but our understanding of the moment we are in and the reality of the current restrictions that may remain in place during the summer. Staff can field your questions and/or seek a motion to approve the summer celebration budget in the amount of $180, $160, $180, $160.
Mike and Joe are still on the,
No,
no?
I don't think they were.
Only if they're still touring.
Right.
If you remember, last year was going to be the last year they were touring, so I'm not sure if they're still in play or not.
Okay.
I didn't think to ask.
Yeah, I seem to recall that we talked about this and they said, yes, we'll make an exception and come back for your event next year. But, you know, we didn't ask them to sign it in blood either, so.
Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously, this event has still got a sizable question mark on it, you know? It's like, you know, any of the other events.
You know, if you watch the media accounts, while you're seeing a number of places talk about having their major events, you're not seeing anyone saying, yes, it's okay.
Correct.
And I think a lot of them are announcing this and then looking over their shoulder to see if Dad says it's okay or not.
Yeah.
So we just don't know at this point.
Yeah, well,
And Dad's just sitting there lighting his pipe, not saying anything. Yeah.
Do we know if any of the contracts, I don't know if you've looked at any of them, do they have an updated force majeure clause saying that if there's a new
yeah.
change?
I've talked to them. If the governor says that we're not permitted to have an event of the type that we're planning, contracts would just roll over to next year. We're still good. However, if the governor says it's okay and we don't have time to put it together, that's on us. So it's like we're going to be dancing a tightrope here.
And why, in what scenario would we not have time to put it together if?
Well, there's you know, as we've discussed, it's like months worth of planning to get stages, to get sound equipment, to get the trailers, to get, you know, like if we're going to do the carnival, to get all the people to volunteer and help. There's a number of those things that have to be taken into consideration, other contracts and stuff that we normally have in place by this time. And are those units going to be available if we reach out to them, or will they have contracted out for somewhere else at that point? Any of those type of hard contracts will require cash down payment, which is not refundable. It's really a tough decision at this point. It's really a tough call.
And it has to be made in April.
Right. Well, I think again, it depends on which media report you watch. This morning, they were talking about how it's starting to trend in the other direction again, the COVID, with the new variants, more infections, higher, and it's starting to peak back up.
Right.
I don't know what their source is, and I don't know the validity of it, but that's what was on Channel 5 this morning. And they're saying, hold off on your big activities. It's starting to peak back up. You've seen a couple of the events in Chicago be canceled, the major indoor events. There was an article in the Tribune earlier this week, or maybe last Friday, that talked about Lollapalooza may happen this year. However, that was based, if you read the article, it was based on something that was said in the United Kingdom about restarting their outdoor concerts saying that, well, America can't be too much farther behind. So there was nothing from the city that officially said it was or might happen.
Well, Texas will be our canary in the coal mine.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. It's,
Yeah, no kidding.
No mask.
yeah, they're going full tilt boogie, I guess, starting now
week.
or
No
next week.
masks and everything is wide open.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, well,
So we'll see.
I believe Wisconsin, they're ending, again, their mask mandate is up for debate, from one person, one community to another. But it ends, I think, March 20th. So,
yeah, okay.
We'll see. I mean, we still only have a very, very small percentage of the population vaccinated at this point.
yeah.
Expect that, you can expect that to increase, but I don't know what the net effect is going to be or how quickly it has an effect.
And how many non-vaxxers are there? I mean, they're still looking at 30%, and they're still suggesting 75 to 85% for herd immunity. So,
Believe you, no one is watching this any closer than we are.
yeah.
So we need approval for Summercell for
It says
180, 160?
160.
180,160. Motion so made.
I'll second it.
motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next budget account that I'll be presenting is Judiciary, tab G, page 112, tab G, page 112. And I am pleased to submit the Judiciary budget for your review. As the board is aware, this budget captures the anticipated legal costs for expenses that include guidance and support on several key areas, to include an administrative hearing judge, which is part of the village's adjudication system, a governmental affairs attorney utilized for monitoring downstate legislation and lobbying efforts, a labor attorney, which includes counsel for matters regarding workplace rules and negotiation of our CBAs, which include sworn officers, sworn sergeants, and telecommunicators, special litigation, which is a reserve to be utilized for any pending suits or actions that may arise during the course of the fiscal year, village counsel, used for providing municipal legal support for day-to-day village operations, as well as development and land use agreements, and a village prosecutor, which is used for representing the village in court with enforcement actions taken by police and code enforcement during the performance of their duties. One note, there is an increase in the contract for Klein Thorpe Jenkins, which is village counsel. The amount previously budgeted was from an initial bid received approximately 3 years ago. The new number reflects their current rate for municipal legal services and is an additional $25,000. The overall budget for Judiciary is up 5.6% for an amount of $474,000. Staff can answer any questions and/or seek a motion to approve the Judiciary budget for $474,000.
Did we negotiate for extra 10% increase?
Motion to approve Judiciary for $474,000?
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions from the board? No. Okay, roll call.
President Byrne.
Aye.
Trustees Oppenheim.
Aye.
Cook.
Aye?
Takaoka.
Aye.
Schultz.
Aye.
Forster.
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next account that will be presented is the President and Village Board. This is also tab G, page 112. President and Village Board, tab G, page 112. This budget captures the cost associated with part-time salaries and training for board members, as well as conferences to include the Illinois Municipal League, Lake County Municipal Conference, Northwest Municipal Conference, and the International Council of Shopping Centers Conference. All forums and networks intended to keep the village board connected to trends and strategy for better government. This budget also includes services associated with the administration of board activities to include support for the chamber and marketing associations. In addition, this budget includes the Social Services Grant Program, which has historically funded programs to include PADS, Youth and Family Counseling, Scouts, SRA, and many others. This program is being funded at the same level as last year. As the board will recall, the village solicits grants from the community, and a committee consisting of 2 trustees and the village manager prioritize and allocate funding. The president and village board budget is up 1.7% for an amount of $121,142. Staff can field any questions and/or seek a motion to approve the president and village board budget.
So the total is the two put together, the 121, 142. Okay.
Okay, any comments or questions? Is there a motion to approve?
Motion so made for $121,142.
And is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Markwart.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. And the last account is administration, tab D, D as in David, page 26. Administration, tab D, page 26. As the board is aware, this budget captures cost associated with the administration of the village to include village manager, assistant village manager, human resources, communications and cable studio, and a contract for financial and administrative services provided by the accounting firm Lauterbach and Amon. The administration budget proposal provides staffing and oversight of areas to include the delivery of services to the community, supporting economic development, coordinating contracts from financial and accounting services to waste and recycling. Also, community engagement, effective communications and transparency, continuity of the diversity and inclusion initiative, and special programs ranging from the business assistance program to residential skunk abatement programs. As Chief Financial Officer Kyle Craddy stated, the board will also note the continuing trend of centralizing specific functions previously spread across the various departments into one account. Please note the increase in the equipment account and contractual services. Examples of this include the information technology budget and contract with our IT services provider. Over the last year, staff has been working to identify village-wide equipment previously dispersed across the various departments, such as copiers. Centralization into one account has helped to realize increased savings through master contracts and volume discounting. The board will note an increase in contractual services. As a reminder, this account absorbed salary from full-time personnel who have since left service with the village. We have transferred these costs into contractual services, allowing a savings in village personnel costs elsewhere. This has also allowed for increased IT support to include infrastructure maintenance. One additional note for the board, the fees for finance and administrative services provided by L&A increased by 3% as compared to the previous budget year. In conclusion, the administration budget provides organizational leadership, financial and administrative services, effective communications, and the IT tools to help our various departments achieve our mission of ensuring the delivery of exceptional municipal services to the community. Staff can field any questions and/or is seeking a motion to approve the administrative budget, which is up 7% for an amount of $3,468,637.
We're fully funding the Mark Fleischauer Memorial Skunk Euthanasia and Removal Program.
Absolutely, to the tune of $5,000 with a matching grant from the Park District. And I honestly think that should be named after you.
I don't know, you have such a fondness for the beings, though, that
Okay, any further comments or questions on this budget? Okay, is there a motion to approve the administration budget of $3,468,637? Is there a motion?
So made.
So is there a second?
Second.
How is the GIS working out, remote GIS?
You know, I think if, excuse me, I think if you ask the staff, it's working out great.
Good.
I mean, anytime we need something,
Yeah.
we either give him a call or send him an email, and usually in about 20 minutes, it comes out of the printer.
God bless her.
It's really good.
You will note that I believe in community development, there is also a line item in there requested by the two departments. One of the areas with some of the anticipated development, they may need to use one of the engineering firms for some of the field work that was previously done by that person. But the infrastructure maintenance and, as Mark described, the ability to just reach out and call and have certain things delivered is working exceptionally. However, that person is not here to put boots on the ground and walk out with the pole and mark some of the infrastructure as previously done. So the two department heads have requested a line item, I believe it's in community development, for if they need to use an engineering firm for field work that is there in community development.
Okay. Roll call?
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Markport.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
I guess I get to be the bad guy and say there's actually 3 budgets left. I think we said there were 6, there's 3 left, but I'm going to go as fast as I can through these 3. The first one is the general purpose budget. The general purpose budget is primarily for the payment of the village's outstanding principal and interest on everything excluding their TIF debt. It also, for those board members, just as a reminder, it also is the funding to the TIF, because the village does have to make a transfer to the TIFs annually to be what would have been equal to the property taxes associated with that TIF. And then also just some funding for some SEBA liability that the village has. I'm available for questions and would entertain a motion to approve the general purpose budget in the amount of $4,579,205.
Besides the TIF, what's the total amount of bonds we have out there? About 20 million?
Yeah, give or take. The TIF debt has a substantially higher amount
Right.
than the rest. I would say probably about 20 million.
20, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very reasonable for a community of our size and a budget of our size.
We could write him a check tomorrow.
Right, yes, we could.
Yeah.
Where's Rosemont, Roger?
What's that?
Where's Rosemont at these days? About a
Oh, my
200
God,
million?
I still go back in time, it was like, they were bonded out, what, $500 million.
500 million. yeah.
I'm going, holy cripes, But I don't know if that's true anymore. Hopefully they've reduced some of it.
Okay, motion to approve general purpose amount of $4,579,205.
Second.
Motion and a second, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Markport.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The next budget in front of you is tab R, which is the Vernon Hills Town Center TIF. Pretty much all of the expenses here is the principal and interest payments for that debt. And so if the board has any questions, I would entertain a motion in the amount of $1,568,620 for the Vernon Hills Town Center TIF fund.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Within the opening statement, there was some discussion about potential additional development there, or no? Redevelopment? No?
I'm not aware of any at the town center, TIF.
Okay.
Yeah, the only thing that's there is what is Taxman giving us that lot.
Correct, it's about a 1-acre piece of land.
Yeah. It's just a donation. No strings.
Which lot?
It's the small one out in front of the retail off of, you know where the pizza parlor is?
Giuseppe's
You're on
Pizza,
Giuseppe's?
45.
Right,
just to the west of it.
just to the,
It's a vacant lot that
Yeah.
they
is that
were,
where they were going to do a bank pad
Yes.
potentially?
and that's what they did, is they did a pad, they did
Yeah.
a parking pad there to accommodate the parking for the customers. And now they're looking to dispose of the land and asked us if we would accept a donation. They're not making land anymore these days, so I'll
Why-
take everything I can get.
Why are they?
I'm sure it's a business tax write-off.
Yeah.
So they're working on getting an appraisal for the property, and we'll have to get an appraisal.
They get a write-off? 'Cause they couldn't
How big,
get it or whatever.
Couldn't get the bank there.
how big is the site where Philly G's is, or was?
Mike Atkinson would know that. I don't honestly know the size of the lot.
Can't be an acre.
I don't think so.
I thought, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Wasn't a big lot to start with.
No.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
We don't, we have a motion
Yes.
for the 1 million, do we?
No,
No,
I don't
not
think I
yet.
no.
I have a motion for the 1,568,620.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Take comments or questions? If none, roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Oppenheim,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Markport.
Aye.
Motion carries.
The last budget in front of you is on tab R. That's the Vernon Hills Town Center TIF. Just like the other TIF,
No, you mean Melody?
sorry.
Melody.
Yep, sorry, I didn't advance the
There you
slides, that's
go.
my fault. This is the Melody Farm TIF, which is tab Q. In essence, this is the same thing. It's pretty much 100% the debt payments for this coming fiscal year. And so I would entertain a motion in the amount of $1,597,008 for the Melody Farm TIF.
Any comments or questions from the board?
And this account is
Very well.
at the positive already.
Very much so, yes.
A ray of sunshine.
Well, then a motion to approve the 1,597,008.
For the Melody Farm TIF.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call.
President Byrne,
Aye.
trustees Oppenheim, Cook,
Aye.
Takaoka,
Aye.
Schultz,
Aye.
Forster,
Aye.
Markport.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is that it?
That's it.
Is there a motion to adjourn the committee at all?
So may.
Second.
There it is.
Motion is second. Now, can I ask for an aye on this one?
You can because we're all here.
Okay. Would those that want to adjourn indicate by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Any nays? The ayes have it. The committee budgetary hearing is over.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you and good night.
So Nancy has the.
Good night.
Better days. Good night, Craig.